Welcome, welcome. Good morning. Happy Tuesday to everybody. I have been waiting for this conversation. This has been in the making and the planning for some time with beautiful Dr. Neet, who I will be introducing you to in a second. But just a reminder for anyone who's catching this live or on replay, this is the How Change Changes You podcast. And the reason that this set of conversations, this podcast has come into existence is because as a coach and a fellow human being, I find it quite difficult to navigate change at times. I don't know about you. Change can be very, very wonderful, but it can also be very, very scary. And I want to talk to people who've gone through certain things in their lives, challenges, very much maybe experiences that you're going to have, like we're going to be talking about today, through things like menopause, that disrupt us, that take us off track, and they, in many times, teach us something about ourselves. So all of the conversations I have is to shine a light on the reality of change, but also to hopefully shine the light of hope equally, that you can get through anything. And we're all here to support each other. We're all in this journey together. So without further ado, I met the beautiful Dr. Neet last year as part of the NatWest Business Accelerator. And straight away, I just thought, well, she's somebody who I just need to know and need to chat with. And I've had so many golden nuggets about so many things from Dr. Neet. I knew that this was a conversation that had to be had to help you all. So today we are going to be talking around menopause, but I also wanted Dr. Neet to share a little bit of her story, because I know we're all a bit nosy and we'd all love to know why she started her Bespoke Clinic. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the lovely people watching, Dr. Neet.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you.
Introduce
Well, I'm Dr. Neet, everyone, from the Bespoke Clinic in Jesmond, Newcastle upon Tyne, although we do remote consultations as well. I have got 20 years experience as a GP with a massive interest in women's health throughout all of that. Having done some stints in the hospital to support that interest. And more recently, I've developed a massive interest in functional medicine, which is all about root cause health and trying to get to the bottom of conditions rather than just treating them.
And that's certainly what we were just talking about before we came on live. And I think some people would really benefit from knowing a little bit more about that, because like we'd mentioned, if you are going through a biological challenge of some kind, be it menopause related or not, drugs aren't always the answer, are they? Sometimes you've got to look at kind of, rather than sticky plastering the problem, let's really listen to understand. That's something that you mentioned that you specifically do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, our consultations here, my consultations last an hour, and I really do a deep delve into what it is that the patient's presenting with, their symptoms, what it is that's on the forefront of their mind, but then really sort of going deeper and deeper into what their health's been like throughout their life, maybe even starting from childhood. And what functional medicine's all about is, like I said, it's about the root cause. So somebody might present with fatigue or hormonal symptoms, even the perimenopause, and it's sort of blatantly, well, that's what they've come through the door with, and I'm sure that's what they're going through. But actually, by delving even deeper than that superficial label and maybe thinking about hormones immediately, what I like to do is think a little bit more about the holistic health. What is their sleep like? What is their adrenal health like? Thinking about stress levels and cortisol and all of those sorts of things. Are they looking after their vagus nerve, which is something that you do a lot of? Are they getting daylight? Are they but also thinking about their history of all of that. It could be that they're doing all the right things right now, but have they not been over time, then that can have a massive impact on their health as well. And I think we need to just be really careful with this, I suppose, menopause buzz at the moment, because although there is a lot of discussion and awareness of that now, and I think that's extremely important. And thank goodness for Davina McCall to some extent for raising that profile. But at the same time, not everything can be fixed with HRT. And I think that's one of the messages that I do try and share with my patients. Yeah. And so we do a whole kind of 360 on them to try and work out what else we can improve to enhance their health and well-being going forwards.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And like you say, just to have someone who has a GP background, and obviously you're medically trained and have spent many, many years in that field, to be able to then, I mean, a whole hour of a deep dive of not just listening to what your symptoms are, but actually understanding the lifestyle, how are you living? How is things like the fundamentals of your health, like your sleep, like your stress levels? I think sometimes, and I know, speaking to a lot of women that I work with, we are very good at diminishing and just kind of, oh, well, oh, no, that's just normal. Because we just are conditioned to push through. And I think sometimes you need to have another woman or professional sit and hear what you have to say and say, well, that's a lot, actually. For them to really realize that, hold on, this is your vessel. How much are you looking after it? And let's find the right way to get you on the right path for health. I also super curious want to ask you, Dr. because I know that you were diagnosed with perimenopause, or you had an inkling that you went through perimenopause quite young, didn't you?
Yeah. So I was probably around 37. So it was about 10 years ago when I started to become unwell with anxiety. That's how it presented with me. And it wasn't just anxiety. It was kind of, it stopped my day-to-day life. It was that strong. And along with that, there was a little brain fog, and there were lots of headaches, and at the time, even at the age of 37, it wasn't on my radar that this could be the perimenopause, even though I knew that my mum had gone through it early. I just still wasn't kind of thinking that's what this is. So, I did present to my own GP, and he is an amazing, amazing man, incredibly empathic, and was really understanding. I know people have had mixed experiences with their GP, but this guy is a star. So we talked about it, and he was just like, I think you're just stressed. I think it's just work. And I was like, okay, fine, maybe that's what it is. And so I had a little think about that, and it dragged on for a couple of years. And during that time, in my late 30s, I did say, do you think it could be the perimenopause? And maybe we should just get some bloods done. And we did, and the bloods came back normal. Well, one of the levels came back normal. So it was like, no, you're not, you're not in the perimenopause. Okay, okay. But I just got this feeling that that's what was going on. And it got to a point where I felt like nobody was taking me seriously, even my gorgeous GP. It was just, where do I go? I'm a doctor. I'm doing my own research into this. I have dealt with women's health all my working life. And so I ended up actually having to go down to London to get seen. I saw one of the gynecologists up here. It just didn't feel like that was quite right either. Just nobody was really taking it all on board. And, my blood work was fine. So you're fine. And I went down to a clinic in London, and sure enough, they said, well, listen, let's just try you with a little bit of HRT and just see how you feel. And it literally overnight felt like it changed my life. I was just on it. My confidence was back. I was getting sweats and flushes, but again, it was just kind of, thrown into the carpet. No, you're fine, you're fine. But I felt great. So yes, I then did the whole, well, HRT isn't the answer to everything, and I started thinking more about, what's my sleep like? And, yes, I still need to address my stress and think about mindfulness and yoga and, all these other avenues of care. I had a personal trainer. I was looking after my nutrition. And with all of those and some supplements as well, along with the HRT, I felt like I managed to get through it, but it was like, I was 40 years old at the time, and people were still like, oh, you're on HRT. Yeah, but I feel amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening will be, glued to that, because as I mentioned when we were talking before we went live, I think there's this perception that if you're a GP and that, oh, well, you should then know it all, but that just proves your story of it doesn't actually mean that straight away you get the answer. It is about, thank God, that there are empathetic people that listen and that, the answers are out there, but it's being able to kind of know that there's support, that people you can ask and places you can go to. Was that part of the reason why you set up the Bespoke Clinic then?
It was to some extent. I mean, one of the things that happened during that time that I just want to touch on was that the anxiety around that time was so strong. It was so disabling in a way.
Mm,
It was a right BH, it was horrid.
mm,
And, I remember there were times when I just couldn't leave the house. I remember there was times when I would, I knew I needed to go to the gym. I knew it would be good for me. It would dissipate that anxiety, that adrenaline that I would have. And I would drive to the gym and I would sit outside the gym in my car, but not feel like I could face a person. And it just, I lost my sense of self, I guess, during that time. And, before I did get my treatment. And, one of the things that happened around then as well was that I did go on antidepressants because
mm, mm,
I was like, well, what else is this? And my GP was
mhm.
like, try it. And I'm okay, anything to try and just get through a day.
Yeah.
So it was really, really horrible. And I ended up with 6 months off work as a result of that. And again, people even now go, oh my gosh, you, Dr. Neet, 6 months off work. I can't believe that this can affect anybody, and it can affect people in different ways. And I think the sad thing is that still there are people out there or that present to my clinic and they're just like, I felt like this for years and nobody seems to take me seriously. And it's just, yeah, heartbreaking, really, especially because I've felt it and I've been there. I guess the difference for me was that I was like, listen, somebody here out here is going to listen to me and I am going
Yeah.
to go anywhere to try and get some help for this.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, going to London was the start of
Yeah.
the journey to me getting better and then also opening this clinic. But also it was kind of, yeah, I'm going to take control. This is not going to get me. I am not going to be that person that has had that has functioned so highly for such a long time, and then all of a sudden she's hit some hormonal situations, and it's like a shadow of her former self. Absolutely not. That's not me. So I had to take control.
Yeah.
So yeah. So going back to why I opened the clinic, that was definitely the beginning. That was kind of me starting to think of life in a different way and medicine in a different way. We needed to stop thinking so narrowly
Mm,
as doctors. I needed to think outside of the box. What else is out there? What else can help? And in the journey to try and fix it, to try to fix myself, I realized that there were other avenues, the functional medicine aspect, for one, just exploring hormones in a completely different way, um, to, to manage patients' outcomes. And I guess in the confines of the NHS, that is tricky, unfortunately.
mm, mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Nate, because, I think people hearing that it'll help them just normalize the fact that, I mean, it resonated with me in that my anxiety levels, for different reasons, well, it could have been combined reasons that maybe haven't yet been explored. But I think anxiety can be so debilitating. And I think for many of us, it's like something is wrong with me, rather than this is a human reaction to something, be that an external world or be something hormonal or biological, or just, for me, most recently was the passing of my dad, my grief, just like my anxiety levels at the highest I've ever known them. And I think, it's that's why we need to talk about these things more, in my opinion, because we need to normalize the fact that there's no shame in feeling high levels of anxiety. Many people do. And to your point, it is about being kind to yourself, being compassionate, knowing that you are not the only one. And I think it's been just heartwarming and resonant for you to sit there and say, look, this is where I was, this is what happened, and this is what I did. Because I'm sure people will be like, oh no, Dr. Neet, no, you've got it all together. You're the doctor lady that's got it all together. Well, no, you're human too. And I love how that then started the journey of you questioning, hold on, I've got to think about this differently. And in the confines of the NHS, yeah, there's so much you can do, but actually doing what you're now doing allows you such more space and room to give women the support that they need fully, with functional medicine as well as conventional medicine. So
Yeah,
I'm cheering you on from over here.
yeah, thanks.
100%. I know that you said as well that another part of, and you alluded to it earlier in the deep dive that you do with women, for those maybe who haven't heard about what functional medicine is, what's one of the reasons why you kind of go there? And can you explain a little bit more about it so people can understand?
Yeah, sure. Again, that's a bit of a personal journey, to be honest. So after sorting out my hormones and doing the kind of holistic approach on myself, I felt great. I was ready to get back to work. I got back to work, and all of a sudden, I developed a skin condition called lichen planus. Now, it's an autoimmune condition, which basically means that sort of your body's fighting itself. It's developed antibodies to yourself, and I ended up with a rash all over my body, which sounds like nothing, but it was this raised, scaly, purpley, reddy, horrible, itchy rash. And it did not go away. Excuse me. So I went to the GP. I was just like, I think this is what it is. They were like, okay, let's stick some steroid cream on it to reduce the inflammation. Okay, but why have I got it? Well, we don't know. I knew that we didn't really know at the time. At least I didn't think I knew. So the steroids got stronger and stronger. And bear in mind, you're sort of dousing yourself because it was all over, it was on my face, it was on my torso. And it got to the point where I was on extremely high dose cream and it just wasn't settling. So I got seen by the dermatologist eventually. They said, oh, maybe we should try some phototherapy. So I was at the RVI twice a week having some phototherapy for a couple of months. And it just wasn't working. And one of the consultants said to me, I think we need to give you oral steroids to reduce that down. High dose oral steroids, Neet. And I was just like, oh, I mean, that's kind of serious stuff. That's going to switch everything off inside me. I mean, oral steroids, if you need them, you need them. I'm still a doctor, I get that. But it has a massive impact on your health at the time, even though it might be fixing one thing, it could be contributing to other things. But also it can have a long-term effect on you as well. And I knew all of this. So I was really resistant to going down that route. I was like, just let's give it a bit more time. But it got to a point where after months, it got to a point, and I'm sorry to say this, but one day I woke up and I just thought, I cannot live anymore. And it was that bad. I said to my husband, Kerry, I said, this has to stop one way or another. And I can't do this. It was horrible. I just hadn't slept for such a long time because of the itching. And it was just the worst moment in my life. Waking up that morning and thinking, because of a rash, this is how I feel. And he was just like, right, you're going on these steroids, So we spoke to the consultant. I was on them within a day, and within 3 days, it had calmed down. So thank goodness for conventional medicine. Having said that, whilst I was on that journey of having high dose steroids, of course, you've got all the side effects. I was getting nightmares, I was getting night sweats, having not had them from a hormonal perspective. I was getting bigger because steroids tend to put weight on you. So I was getting bigger. And I also kind of thought, I can't do this forever. You know, the consultant said maybe a year, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just not sure about this at all." So I started doing my own research into autoimmune skin conditions. I was like, there's got to be a different way. So I was doing all the research, reading all the papers, found out that there's all this evidence in China and India and America and Italy, of all places. There was all these papers talking about gut health. And this is well before the time of, you know, Tim Spector being a famous guy. Maybe he's always been famous and he's just not been on my radar. And the Zoe app and things. And I was just like, well, you know, maybe we need to look at that. I didn't have any bowel symptoms or gut symptoms, but I had this rash. And there was all this evidence talking about the gut skin axis. You know, we talk about the brain gut axis when we think about mental health, but there was all this stuff about the gut and the skin. And I thought, there's something in this, you know, I need to start treating myself. So I talked to the dermatologist and he was like, yeah, you know, there's some trials going on down south. And, you know, if you want to send your poo sample somewhere, you probably could. And, you know, it's not that he dismissed it, but there was obviously no avenue of exploring it with him. So I just did my own thing. I started looking at all these papers from all over the world, tried to work out what digestive enzymes I needed to take, what probiotics might be good for me, just kind of did a bit of a guess. And after 3 months, the whole thing had gone. So my skin settled down. I was off my steroids. I felt great. I'd lost some of the weight, not all of it, but I'd lost some of it. And I just felt like I had my life back again. So I think that's just thinking about the power of our body, isn't it? And the power of our gut and how important that can be. And all of that exploration, I guess, for myself, you know, it was selfish, you know, plan, I guess. But I found out that there was other ways of managing a lot of our health problems, and that was looking at our gut. And so I then embarked on my functional medicine exploration journey to try and work out and learn as much as I could and get all the qualifications that I needed to be able to say, right, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm going to treat my patients. Because yes, you can have your steroids, and absolutely, don't get me wrong, we need those conventional medicines. They can be life death for some people, but I think there are other ways to augment that approach, and that's the way that I look at it now.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that, because that every time I hear something like that, it kind of reminds me of this kind of Stoic principle of the obstacle is the way. That often it's the change of life, it's the challenge, it's the dark night of the soul, it's the, you know, the physical symptom, the end of a relationship. It's something that is quite significant, that actually really alters the way that you feel about yourself, that almost puts you under such constriction that you are determined to find a way to be in the driving seat to a resolution of some kind. But that ends up fueling what you then go on to do. Because I think it's my belief, and it might be the eternal optimist in me, that's why we have challenges, because we go on our own journeys and then we're just wired to want to give that back. We're wired to kind of go, oh my God, I went through that. I'd hate for anyone to go through anything similar. So actually, I'm going to use all of this self-study and things that I've done, and then I'm going to invest in actually being able to equip and help others with that as well. And then it feels a little bit more, all right, I went through that, but I've transformed it. I wasn't a victim. And much like you said about the, you know, your menopausal stuff that you went through, I think it can get you to a place of victimhood, can't it? It can get you to that place of, why me? This is not fair. But being
And there
able
was
to have
definitely
that strength.
moments of why me,
Yeah,
you know,
of
of
course there
course there
is.
was. And even now, sometimes, you know, I'll look at my scars, you know, I've still got some hyperpigmentation and I'm like, oh, that time, you know, I cannot believe I had to go through all of that.
Mm,
But then I sit there in front of my patients and I'm humbled at their journeys. And I think that was nothing compared to what some people go through. You
yeah,
know, it's just phenomenal. And I feel so privileged, but also humbled, like I said, that
mm,
that patients share all of that with me and trust me with their stories, you know, just like, you know, I'm sharing mine right now. I think
yeah,
that everyone's got a story, and nobody needs to feel that victim. That
yeah.
yes, of course there'll be moments when you do, but actually take control and look for that help. And there are always avenues of care that can help, in my opinion anyway.
No, I love it, and
this this
you know,
this sorry, there's patients that sometimes leave out of this clinic with nothing. You know, they've just been listened to and they feel validated, and they, you know, I think I was talking to you earlier about, you know, the fact that there's not always a prescription at the end of it, not even a prescription of lifestyle, not even a prescription for, you know, supplements. It's just they've been heard, and sometimes that's all they need.
no, I 100% agree. I mean, I obviously in the profession kind of I'm in, I see
Yeah,
people walk out looking physically lighter, brighter,
yeah,
because a lot of the time there's very few of us that have somebody that to just offload to where there's no judgment. There's just an expression to express for it to leave your body, to be out there, to kind of offload, and for people to acknowledge that you're not going crazy and there's nothing wrong with you and that you are actually very human. And I think it's just that's, you know, so wonderful that we can all be that. But then on top of that, Dr. Neet, that you can actually, because of your own personal experiences, and I'm sure the wide gamut of people that you treat, you'll have probably seen an example of, well, many, many different approaches that work. And like you said, we're all unique, right? We've all got our own story and we've all got our own maybe path into something that's going to work for us. So
I
it's,
think that's again what I love about what it is I do now. You know, thinking about change again, and the change from my conventional GP NHS role to being, you know, a clinic owner and being more in the private sector, I guess, is that I can personalize everything I do for my patients, and I do. You know, not a single person leaves with the same outcome or management plan, and it's all very bespoke, as in the name. And I just love that I can do that with everyone, because that's what I needed. That's what I needed. You know, I needed somebody to say, right, let's look at Neet. What exactly has happened in her life that could have contributed to this early menopause, that could have been contributing to these particular symptoms, that could then have led to the stress that she's experienced, that has then led to the skin condition that she has got, that has then led her to being okay. And
mm,
I want to map all that out for every single person so that I
mm,
can go, right, at this point, that's where we maybe had a turn in events for your thyroid health, for example.
mm,
Let's have a little think about the circumstances around that and unpick it a little bit so that we can work out how to best help you now and prevent. Importantly, I think this is a lot about prevention as well.
mm.
Prevent that kind of thing from happening again, or prevent something else from developing, because we are optimizing you now. And I say that a lot to my patients. You know, there's a couple recently that have come in and they're like, oh, I feel great. And I'm like, well, why are you here? Not quite, but you know, that's
Yeah,
great that you
as long
feel
as you see
great.
some problem. Yeah.
I just want to feel my best. Amazing. I love that, you know. And then I've got other patients that'll come back for a review and they say, yeah, I feel better. Like, that's great. I feel fine. I'm like, I don't want fine. I don't want better and fine. I want amazing. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's always that work to be done. I'm like, yeah, you can go and feel fine. And that's great. Thank you very much. See you next year. Or let's have a little think about how to really tweak
Mm,
stuff now and
Yeah.
optimize it so you feel amazing. And I mean,
Mm.
you know, I'm realistic. We don't want to feel amazing every day. That's crazy.
I mean, it would
But
be nice to feel that more often than not, though,
more
right?
often than not. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's the target.
No, I love that. And that makes so much sense as well why you've gone with Bespoke Clinic, right? Because that gives you the opportunity to really look at the whole woman, the whole person, to know what actually might be going on for them. And like you say, I love the fact that some people will walk out and kind of go, do you know what? I just feel better for being heard, being understood. I'm not crazy. I'm not broken. I'm actually just going through some stuff right now. Like, oh, thank goodness. But the fact that, to your point, there's other people at the other end of the scale that actually want to optimize their performance and how they feel every, day in their lives, because maybe they've got the means to be able to do that. I mean, that's equally
Yeah.
amazing too, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff around longevity now, isn't there? And living well for longer and wellgevity. There's the buzzword. But I
Oh,
think
I've not
that,
heard of that one.
oh, and you know, I'm seeing more and more patients that are looking for that side of things, which is great. You know, it to me, it doesn't matter. It's about listening to that individual person and going, right, where are you? Where have you been? Where do you want to be? And trying to get that managed for them, or give them the tools to do it themselves if that's what's required. The other lovely thing that I'm very lucky to have is that I've got lots of people that I'm collaborating with at the clinic. So, you know, I'm just thinking about one lady in particular that you know, was fine, really. And you know, we'd done some of the testing, and she was really great. She had an amazing gut. It's very rare that you see a gut microbiome like hers, Christina. You know, so
My,
yeah,
what a
that's like an
beautiful
award.
microbiome you have.
Exactly. So so that was really interesting because I was like, okay, but interestingly, she was still wanting to optimize, you know, her nutrition and her health. And so I referred her to a nutritional therapist that I work with that's, you know,
Mm,
functioning medicine trained and can really kind of work with her to whatever end it is that she desires, I guess, you know.
mhm, mhm.
And then I've got another lady again who actually the only intervention that we've done, having done some baseline work, is we've referred her to our counsellor that's here. So, and
Mm.
she's doing an amazing job with the healing that she needed to do from her journey. So yeah, so I just love the fact that it's not just me. You know, it is it's a teamwork. It's teamwork, and it's about collaboration. It's about referring on. It's about making sure that people know what else is out there to help them as
I love
well.
that. I love that so, so much. Because I think there's that thing, isn't there, around, to your point, there's so many different entry points into things. And if we can signpost that actually, does this
Yeah.
speak to you? Maybe this speaks to you, if somebody that maybe wants to take more of a somatic approach, more of a body movement approach to something, for example, over a medical approach, and just knowing that, look, there's almost like a smorgasbord of just lots of different practices and approaches to well-being. But yeah, and I love that is part of then being part of the community of the Bespoke Clinic, that actually you're not just, no, I'm the holder of all the wisdom.
I'm
and I
absolutely
will
not the
prescribe.
holder of all the wisdom. No, and I always tell people that. Um, you've got to understand your own expertise, don't you? And
Yeah,
you've got to also appreciate the expertise around you.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I remember whenever I talk about my anxiety journey and I think about that time of my life, I say I had a tribe. You know, I had my psychologist, I had my yoga teacher, I had a
Hmm.
PT, I had a nutritionist. And I was very lucky to be able to just go, right, I'm having all of it, you know,
Yeah.
I want all because I need to get better now.
Hmm.
Um, and not everyone has got the ability to invest them, you know, themselves into all of that, whether it's time or money. But you need a tribe of people around you. You need that friend to be able to talk to. You need that doctor that
Yeah.
understands or listens.
Yes.
You need the psychologist. You need the therapist. You need the coach. You need nutrition. You need movement, like you said. You need daylight. You need the sun. You know, you need all these things.
Yeah. No,
Ah, I'm sounding
absolutely.
a bit woo now, aren't I?
Well, we're all energy. We're all
Hey,
made up of
listen,
it.
I've got crystals. I love my crystals as well.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that's the beautiful thing, isn't it? It's kind of you, whatever I always say to people, whatever speaks to you, whatever
Yeah.
resonates with you, follow that up. And it is about being curious and open-minded. I think sometimes, when we're closed-minded, you might be closing yourself off to something that might well help you. So I think it is to be discerning there. That's more the question, the approach to discern. So those that are maybe watching, if they are maybe going through a little bit of, maybe they've read some symptoms around perimenopause and menopause. I mean, you also mentioned about the huge gamut of people who are at the younger end of the spectrum, as you were, right the way to people who are at the kind of older end of the spectrum. I guess I'm just wondering if you could speak to, and a part of it is understanding where people are at, but if they are at the younger end or at the older end, what are some of the things that they can be maybe thinking about? Any resources or signposting?
I think the most important thing is to speak and not just put up with anything.
Yeah.
As ladies, I think we're a little more guilty than the men of just putting up and shutting up about things that we feel.
Yeah.
We feel anxious. We think we're not good enough. We think we've lost our confidence. We don't want to see our friends. We have itchy skin. We start to get sagging. We start to put on weight, and we just put up with it far too long, in my opinion. And any of those things that are not your typical menopausal symptoms. I didn't once mention flushes or sweats or vaginal dryness, but any of those other things can just make you feel off. And then the longer you leave it, the harder it gets to actually get to the bottom of it and for people to help you fix it. I think the problem is that with these little things, people are worried about sharing with a healthcare professional because they think, oh, well, they've got more things to do with their time. I don't know. I find that really hard because I do appreciate that being a doctor's busy, especially in the NHS, but I do also feel as though unless we share those things early enough, we're not going to get to the bottom of things, and then things develop. So whether it's sharing with your friends, sharing with your colleagues, just talk about it. Just say, listen, I'm feeling this. What do you think? And I think we are getting better. We're still rubbish, but I think we're getting better at it. And whether that is in your late 30s or whether that's in your late 50s or early 60s even, there's no wrong time to talk about how you might be feeling and whether that could be attributed to something health related. You can always optimize it even if it isn't.
Yeah.
So the way that I see it is, please talk about it, and reduce the stigma even more about the fact that we're human and we're allowed to feel and experience physical and psychological things.
Yeah, it's the permission, isn't it? I think permission to feel a lot of the time is to to have the conversations, because I think we do put up and shut up a lot. I would totally agree with you. And I think our generations maybe before us more so, whereas I think we are creating more spaces, like you and I are having this conversation today about normalizing the human experience, but also saying, you know what, nobody has got all of this figured out. Nobody. There are no perfect humans walking this planet. It is messy, but that's kind of also what makes it beautiful. And being able
I think the other thing to say,
it's okay.
Sorry, the other thing to say is that I've had quite a few people, and I do get it. There's quite a few people that have come through the clinic who have said, well, the GP's done all the blood tests and they're fine. So what's wrong with me? And I think, again, there's a lot to be said for the fact that your basic bloods can be fine. But that doesn't mean you're not fine. It means that you are fine. Feel validated in how you are and still keep pushing and exploring. And
that's really
that's a sad
thing.
It is, and it's sad, isn't it? Because there's only so much, again, that we can do within the confines of the NHS. So that does upset me sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get that. Somebody recently I was talking to said that they went to the doctor, and actually what was beautiful is they were talking about a particular symptom, and the doctor turned around and said, well, what do you think it is?
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel is the problem? Rather than, I think because we get into such desperation, don't we, sometimes, where it's just like, well, just tell me how to fix it because I'm desperate, as opposed to, well, no, let's do a little bit of introspection. Because we're living in our body, and I think some of that interoception, to be able to kind of feel into what we might feel it is, we still are instinctual beings. I think we've kind of often moved away from that, so it is to get back in touch with it. But I think even just to have that conversation is a healthy one.
Yeah, and whenever that conversation happens, which probably happens every time I see anybody, what are your thoughts about this? What's going on? And what have you explored already? And what research have you done? Because everybody's done the research, or a lot of people have, that's a good starting point, isn't it? To try and then work out, okay, well, let's start there.
Yeah.
And then let's unpick it and see where we get to with it all. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I'm sure people are kind of going, okay, so I need to go and see Dr. Neet. Where do they come and find you? Well, we'll make sure that all of your links are below, but where do they come and find you?
So I'm at the Bespoke Clinic. It's on Osborne Road in Jesmond, for those of you who are Newcastle based. But we also offer online consultations and free discovery calls if you're not sure if we can help or not. We'll definitely signpost you if that's the case.
I love that. Love that. And thank you so much again, Dr. Neet. I think you have just, I feel just heard and listened to just by listening to what you shared. And I just know that so many people will have got so much from this conversation. Thank you for sharing your personal stories as well, because I think that
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's something that's so, so important to, again, as we navigate, ride the waves of change, to somehow just do our best to feel, how we're feeling, but know that actually their answers are out there, and there's not all one size fits all. There's a whole communities out there that we're here to help each other, which is really lovely. So as I say, we'll make sure that all of your links are below. If anyone watching this live or replay has any questions, then do get in touch. We want to hear from you. We want to help in any way that we can. But yeah, thank you again, and have a wonderful day. Dr. Neet, you stay there and I will end the live. So thanks for watching, everybody who has. There we go. Done.